All right, let's be honest here. When someone says Iraq, what comes to mind? Probably not ancient ziggurats and hanging gardens, right? More likely, it's those headlines we see all too often.
Yeah, it's tough to get past those sometimes.
But on this deep dive, we're hitting rewind way back to the very beginning. We're talking about a 6,000-year journey to really understand how Iraq's story has unfolded.
We're talking ancient history here.
Exactly. And we're lucky enough to be diving into this with The Glory and the Agony by John Robertson.
This book is phenomenal, especially if you're someone, and I know you are, who loves to connect the dots. What makes it so fascinating is that it takes such a long view of things.
I'm all about those aha moments.
Yeah.
Love it when everything clicks.
You'll get plenty with this one. You'll start to see how threads from literally thousands of years ago are still playing out even today. Wild stuff.
Okay, no pressure on Robertson then. I have high expectations. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's set the stage. Ancient world, where are we even starting?
Picture this. Mesopotamia. It's nestled right between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, nicknamed the Fertile Crescent, and for good reason.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Imagine lush land, incredibly fertile, where agriculture just exploded. I mean, we're talking about the very first cities popping up here. And here's the catch. This abundance wasn't always a good thing.
Wait, too much of a good thing. Now that's a problem I think I could have handled.
It wasn't always easy living. See those rivers? Not always so predictable.
Flooding.
Exactly. A constant threat. One year, you have a bumper crop. The next, your entire harvest is wiped out. And it's not just floods. Some years, the water would recede too much, causing salinization. The soil would become so salty, nothing could grow. A cycle of boom and bust, you know.
Wow, talk about a roller coaster.
And that instability, it affected everything they did, even their myths. Take the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example.
Oh, that's the flood story, right?
The one and only. It's a story found across cultures, and it all stems from those real anxieties of living in Mesopotamia, that constant fear of the next flood.
Makes sense. Always living on the edge like that. So how'd they deal with it all? With nature throwing them curveballs left and right.
Yeah.
They must have been incredibly resourceful.
They were, incredibly. And what's so interesting is, unlike other early civilizations, they lacked a lot of what we think of as essential resources. We're talking basic things, metals, building stone, the stuff you'd think you'd need to build an empire. They had to innovate.
Had to make do with what they had.
Exactly. So they became masters of trade. Think of ancient Mesopotamia like, I don't know, the New York City of its day. It was the link between East and West. They had everything flowing through their cities, lapis lazuli all the way from Afghanistan, spices from the Orient, a real melting pot.
I'm trying to picture that, camels laden with treasure, merchants from all over the bustling marketplaces. It must have been something else.
It really was. But all that trade, all those riches, well, it made them a target.
I was just thinking that. Everyone wants a piece of the pie.
Right. And that takes us to the rise and fall of all these empires. First, you've got the Sumerians. These were the guys with cities like Uruk, absolutely massive for their time. They invented things we still use today. The wheel, writing, these were the founding fathers, the pioneers. But then come the Assyrians, known for their military strength. If there ever were conquerors, it was them. And they, of course, made way for the Babylonians.
The Babylonians, they're the ones with the hanging gardens, right?
The one and only. Those guys were all about those incredible cities, pushing the limits of architecture and engineering. But what's fascinating is how each of these empires came to power. A mix of everything, military smarts, good administration, but also a healthy dose of luck of being in the right place at the right time. But this pattern, this constant shifting of power, empires rising and falling, that's a recurring theme here, almost like it's woven into the fabric of the region.
So like a constant power struggle playing out over centuries.
You got it, and trust me, it doesn't stop there.
You know me, I love it when history gets a little personal, a little closer to home.
Oh, absolutely.
And Robertson, he really delivers on that.
He does. He really does.
He digs deep into this discovery of Queen Puabi's tomb. I mean, we're talking about a Sumerian queen decked out in gold and lapis lazuli. Can you imagine?
It's incredible, isn't it?
He even describes the craftsmanship, the detail, just incredible. I'm picturing it now, talk about sparking my inner Indiana Jones.
And you know what I love about it? It's not just about the bling factor.
Don't get me wrong, the bling is impressive.
Oh, for sure. It grabs your attention. But Queen Puabi's tomb, it really made historians rethink everything they thought they knew about ancient trade routes.
Really? How so?
Well, remember how we were talking about Mesopotamia being this central hub?
Yeah, the link between East and West.
This just proved that they were even more globalized than anyone imagined. That lapis lazuli, that gorgeous blue, it came all the way from Afghanistan.
No way.
Can you imagine that journey back then?
Talk about a long-distance relationship with your jeweler?
Right. It's incredible. And it just goes to show how sophisticated, how advanced these ancient Mesopotamians were.
Speaking of advanced, Babylon.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Robertson even compares it to ancient Luoyang in China. And fun fact for our listeners, that was a mega city even back then.
That's right. Babylon was massive, an absolute testament to how skilled they were. Their engineering, their urban planning, just amazing. I mean, everyone loves the idea of the Hanging Gardens.
Oh, for sure, even if we're still not totally sure where they were exactly.
Exactly. It's still a bit of a mystery. But honestly, what gets me about the Babylonians, it's something way more down to earth.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. What is it?
Their concept of time.
Time. I mean, I'm all for a good history lesson, but are we talking sundials here?
Yeah.
What's so fascinating about ancient clocks?
Okay, get this. How much do you love optimizing your day, squeezing in every last minute?
Oh, you know me too well.
Every time you glance at your watch, you've got the Babylonians to thank.
What? Really?
That whole 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute thing, straight from them.
I never would have guessed.
It all comes down to their incredible understanding of math and astronomy.
Mind blown. I'm never going to look at my watch the same way again. Okay, so we've got empires rising and falling, innovations that are still with us today. But this golden age of Mesopotamia, it couldn't last forever, could it?
All good things must come to an end, right?
So what happened? Internal struggles? External pressures? One too many floods?
I think it was a bit of everything, really.
The perfect storm.
You got it. Internal divisions definitely weakened them, made them vulnerable. And, well, let's just say they had some ambitious neighbors. And I'm talking ambitious with a capital A.
Oh boy, this doesn't sound good.
This is where we see some new characters taking the stage. We're talking Alexander the Great. Talk about an empire builder, right?
He got around, that's for sure.
Swept through Mesopotamia like it was nothing. And then you have the rise of early Christian communities. Fascinating stuff, really. They added this whole new layer to the region's cultural tapestry.
Wow, talk about a melting pot of history.
Oh, and we can't forget the Arab conquests. Talk about a turning point. That brought some profound changes, really shaped the region for centuries to come.
So many twists and turns.
But here's the thing. Even with all of that, empires rising and falling, new powers coming in, Mesopotamia never really went away.
What do you mean?
It held on. It remained this center, this beacon of learning, of culture, of spirituality. It's incredible, really a testament to the power of ideas.
I mean, it's incredible to think about how even after all that upheaval, all that change, Mesopotamia was still there.
It's remarkable, and it really makes you think, doesn't it, about what endures, what lasts.
Okay, so we've gone through thousands of years, empires rising and falling, innovations that still blow our minds today.
It's amazing, isn't it?
But now I think it's time we step into what some might call recent history.
Well, recent is a relative term, isn't it? Especially when we're talking about a place like Iraq.
It really is. And this is where things get really interesting, especially for all those map lovers out there.
You know me. I could get lost in a good map.
Me too. And sometimes I look at borders like the ones we see today, and I think, who decided that was a good idea?
Right. Like, how did they come up with that?
Exactly. And nowhere is that question more important than when we're talking about the creation of modern Iraq.
It's a fascinating story, really, because those borders we see on maps today, they were mostly drawn by outsiders after World War I.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that, trying to create a country, a national identity from such a diverse group of people and histories.
It's like trying to fit puzzle pieces that don't quite go together, isn't it?
That's a great way to put it. You've got Arabs, Kurds, Turkmen, Syrians, all brought together under this new flag and told, okay, now be a nation.
Easier said than done, I'd imagine.
It was a huge challenge. And it wasn't just the diversity that made it difficult. They were also dealing with centuries of decentralized rule.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for hundreds of years, power in this region wasn't concentrated in one place. It was spread out among local tribes, religious leaders, that kind of thing.
So it's a strong central government. That was a new concept for them.
Brand new. And let's be honest, a little shaky at first.
It's understandable. So how do you even begin to build a sense of shared identity, a sense of being Iraqi, when there are so many different forces pulling people in different directions?
That is the million-dollar question. And into all of this comes this powerful idea, Pan-Arabism. It was a movement gaining traction all across the Middle East.
I've heard of that.
It was fueled by this deep desire to break free from colonial rule, to create this unified Arab world. You can see the appeal, right? Shared language, shared culture, shared history, all coming together after being divided and ruled by outsiders for so long.
It's a powerful idea, for sure.
It was, but, and it's a big but, Pan-Arabism, it also came with its own set of complications.
What do you mean?
Well, who gets to lead this unified Arab world? Where do you draw the lines?
Right, that's never easy.
It became this recipe for both unity and, unfortunately, some pretty intense power struggles.
And just to make things even more complicated, you've got oil entering the picture.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm guessing that didn't exactly simplify things.
It was like throwing a match on a pile of kindling. Suddenly, you have this nation trying to figure itself out, and now it's sitting on top of one of the most valuable resources in the world.
And everyone wants a piece of it.
Exactly. And it led to new forms of influence, new pressures, you name it, just another layer of complexity for Iraq to deal with.
It's almost hard to fathom all of this happening at once. You've got internal struggles over identity, over power, external pressures from the outside world. It's a lot.
It really was. And all of this tension, this change, it all came to a head in 1958 with the overthrow of the monarchy.
The Hashemite monarchy, the one the British put in place.
The one and only. It was a real turning point, this rejection of the old order. But it also led to a period of incredible uncertainty.
It's like they ripped off the Band-Aid and had to start from scratch.
In a way, yeah. It was up to them now to chart their own course. But they had the weight of history on their shoulders, the complexities of their own society, and the whole world watching.
That is a lot of pressure.
No doubt about it. And you know what's incredible? Through all of that, through all the ups and downs, the Iraqi people have shown incredible resilience.
It's almost hard to grasp. Thousands of years of history, so much change, so much upheaval. It really makes you appreciate just how connected everything is, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How much the past can echo into the present.
It really does. And I think that's what makes studying history so fascinating. It's not just about dates and names. It's about understanding the forces that have shaped the world we live in today.
And gaining a new appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit. We might not always get it right, we might stumble and fall, but somehow we always find a way to keep going.
Exactly. And that's what Robertson leaves you with, a sense of hope.
Hope.
Hope for the future, rooted in the enduring spirit of the Iraqi people, their ability to adapt, to rebuild, even in the face of hardship.
That's a powerful message. I think that's something we can all take away from this deep dive into 6,000 years of Iraqi history. It's a story of empires, of innovation, of faith, of resilience. And it reminds us that even in the face of unimaginable challenges, the human spirit, it always finds a way. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.